Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to today's Fireside Chat where we talk about all things security. Now, my name is Stephen, and I am the host of today's session. Joining me today is our special guest, Art Ocain, CISO Strategic Alliances Management at Airiam. Now, Art provides strategic leadership as the Chief Information Security Officer at Airiam, with additional responsibilities as a virtual CIO, CISO, and CTO for several of his clients. Welcome to today's session, Art.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
So, Art, let's start off a little bit. Just tell the listening audience a little bit about Airiam. Some of the folks on the call may not have heard about you folks before.
Yeah, so Airiam is a relatively new company. We were formed out of mergers and acquisitions of several MSPs and MSSPs, basically to create a resiliency superpower out of basically your traditional IT plus cybersecurity services and incident response. And incident response has really been my focus for the last probably 5 years, is really building up our ability to respond, and then that really fed our our interest in wanting to make sure that clients can get back up and running very quickly after an attack, which kind of fed into us looking for solutions to test environments, thus Horizon 3.
Yeah, awesome. So before we get deep into this conversation, I always like to start these sessions with something a little bit lighthearted, some of the latest news. Some of this may not be too lighthearted, depending upon who was impacted. But this just came in today, folks. Okta and the company revealed that hackers obtained data belonging to all customer support system users. They knew they had a breach, and then today they released the fact of what was actually released. I don't think it's too bad. I think it's just names, people's names as well as their email addresses. So I don't think it was any really private information. But when you think about the number of people out there and enterprises that are utilizing Okta, it probably impacted quite a few people. Now, according to Okta, they said that implement multi-factor authentication. Great idea. They also have implemented a new feature, admin session binding, I think, admin session timeout, and of course, they're warning about phishing attempts, et cetera. So it's something that's definitely close to the heart of a lot of people out there that utilize Okta. Now, here's an interesting one as well, Art. Thanksgiving Day cyber attacks divert ambulances in Texas and Idaho. And upon learning of the unauthorized access, the UT Health Organization in East Texas, the operator of 10 hospitals and more than 90 healthcare clinics in East Texas, immediately took its networks offline, diverted ambulances to other hospitals. In the past, Art, I think you can agree with this. Healthcare was kind of paid sort of like off limits to the hacker community, the humanitarian purposes of healthcare. So, any thoughts around that one, Art?
Yeah, especially during the height of the pandemic in 2020, really all the threat actors were leaving hospitals alone. In fact, if they did ransomware a hospital and realized it afterwards, and they were like, "Oh, here's your key.
Yeah.
Sorry, like we didn't mean to hack you," because of the public safety need for hospitals at the time. They were really focused on leaving healthcare alone. Lately, it doesn't seem to be the case. So we've seen hospitals being hit pretty frequently lately, and other healthcare environments, that are, whether it's a nursing home or just other, healthcare facilities, being hit, pretty religiously lately. So their data is rich. It's valuable. It's expensive. The fines are high. There's a high willingness of people to pay the ransom when you're looking at a lot of breach data, and a lot of HIPAA fines and things like that. So they're they are a perfect target for threat actors. So I think they've taken that truce off now, and for healthcare, and they're really aiming for them now. And with situations like this hospital, it's affecting human safety, it's
Right.
affecting health, and it's people can die because of ransomware. So, the fact that organizations are still kind of not ready to accept that risk, and are still not ready to bounce back from that kind of attack, uh, means that we're as a nation, we're still way far behind where we need to be. And, especially healthcare should be one of the most protected things right now, as far as critical infrastructure, and it's not. And the fact that successful attacks like this are happening so frequently, and it's causing people to have to divert ambulances. Imagine if that hospital's the closest one to you and the next one's 45 minutes away and you have somebody who just had a heart attack. Now you're having to drive, things like that. It's really something that needs a lot more attention right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, then couldn't agree with you more. So here's another one that just came in. General Electric investigating cyber attack, possible DARPA data theft, and a threat actor named Intel Broker, kind of like that name, has been seen on a hacker forum advertising the sale of the database from General Electric and DARPA, including access credentials like SSH and SVN. And the information reportedly includes DARPA-related military details, files, SQL files, documents, basically, the keys to the kingdom. I think we can clearly see, and, I've been in this industry for a long time, as you can probably tell from my gray beard. And, and so, we really think about what's going on today. I haven't seen this level of acceleration of attacker activity and very large organizations falling like dominoes, one after another after another. And it really kind of ties into the term resiliency. And I want to get to that in just a second, Art, because, that's what you guys specialize in. When I think about resiliency, I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and I got this 200-year-old oak tree sitting in my front yard. And when Hurricane Irma came through a few years and it kind of went up right up the spine of Florida, we are getting like 90, 85, 90 mile an hour wind gusts. And I'm watching this tree just whipping around, and these branches are this big around. And just the flexibility of this tree, although, there was branches falling everywhere and I had to pick up like 40 bags of debris out of my front yard the next morning, it didn't hurt the tree. The tree was just fine, and actually I think it actually made it grow more. And so, you think about in terms of resiliency. So let's focus on that for the next few minutes. So I got a question for you, and this was one of the things that we promised to talk about in this session. Why is there a growing demand for managed resiliency services in today's enterprises?
I think people are starting to realize that the attacks are going to happen. And we've invested so much money in identification and prevention, but almost no money in that recovery part of an incident. And so, all of our investments in big EDR, big firewalls, big things to stop the attack from happening. But assuming it does, there's really nothing people are doing to protect the rest of their environment. And I think people are starting to realize that even if you invested, close to an infinite amount of money on detection and prevention, there's always some way in. There's always something. And if you can't hack the technology, you can hack a person and get the person to get you in. So there's always a way in. And given that fact, companies are starting to finally realize that, okay, we need to figure out a way to bounce. If this does happen, how do we bounce? How do we get back up and running and with minimal interruption to services and keep performing and making money and serving our clients? And that's really the core of resiliency, is that oak tree that's bending in the breeze, that's flexing and not breaking. And if it does break, usually it's going to keep growing out of what's left, and it's just stubborn, and it's going to be there, and it has that resiliency built into it. It has a strong root system. It has things in place that are going to give it longevity. A lot of people have so much technical debt in their environments, just because of years of either neglect or just lack of investment, et cetera, that they've accumulated vulnerabilities. And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of vulnerabilities in their network. And some of them are known, some of them are not known, but they're there. And they've just accumulated over time, so that now there's no strong root system to hold this thing together when it does get attacked. Now there's 100,000 ways to attack this network, and there's really nothing to protect it. And, when you're doing an attack like ransomware or like Wiper or some other destructive attack, you're really attacking the confidentiality, availability, and integrity of all of the data. Like there's systems are down, you're unable to work, you have no access to your data, it's been
Right.
breached, the threat actors have your data, as in the DARPA case. So there's really you've lost every tenet of cybersecurity in that attack.
Right.
And so given that that's going to happen at some point, how are you going to get back up and running? And so that I think is that dawning, that realization that companies are having now that, okay, we are going to be attacked. We are going to be hit. Somebody's going to be successful if they want to. And if there's nothing you can do to stop a really determined threat actor from getting into your environment, they're going to find a way. So given that fact as some kind of truth, how do we get back up and running afterwards? How do we restore operations? How do we segment our stuff so that we're able to keep services up and running under a cyber attack? How do we create that situation so that it's a minimal effect to the business? And that's
Exactly.
really where resiliency is coming up right now in the industry.
So you guys are specializing in this
Mhm.
resiliency. So how are you helping clients improve their business resiliency, against cyber attacks? I mean, in
Mhm.
a nutshell, right? What are you guys actually doing?
Right. Some of it's just architecting their stuff better. So creating segmentation between networks, putting in the right kind of technology, and a lot of times it's not investments in new technology. It's stuff they already have. It's just configuring it differently so that you're hardening things and you're actually creating a better, more healthy environment. And then rolling out things like MFA, of course, prevention measures like that, lessen the impact and the spread of something, but also rolling out immutable backup solutions. So, assuming something does get hit and we're going to have to recover it, having some way to recover it, is kind of a something that we're doing. But the one thing that we're finding the biggest kind of, we're building the most velocity behind is addressing this technical debt, all these, vulnerabilities or just old legacy stuff, stuff that you can't patch, stuff that's going to be vulnerable, but you have to leave it on your network. It's a core system thing, but it hasn't been updated since 2003, and it has every exploitable feature known to man in it. How do we protect that? And putting kind of a boundary around that and segmenting that off and just letting in what we need to into those services and really kind of protecting that. So we're building up that toughened root structure for that oak tree, by protecting these pieces of the organization. And where the zero trust approach is taking that DAS surface, that protect surface, and really looking at each system or each piece of data as something that could be a crown jewel that needs to be protected. Kind of that's how we're looking at it with resilience is, okay, this crown jewel, this important system, this ERP system, this manufacturing system, whatever it is, how do we protect it and how do we make it so that we can restore it? How do we, lessen the SLA, for us to be able to respond to a threat, get you back up and running if it is impacted, things like that. And so, focusing on piece by piece. And um, when you're looking at an enterprise that has 20 or 30,000 vulnerabilities in it or more, you have a real hard time trying to prioritize those. You're not really sure which of these are the important ones to focus on. There's every vulnerability known to man in this network. So what's really critical to the organization? What are the crown jewels? And then, once you've determined what those crown jewels are, what are what's the attacker going to see? What's the attack path through that network? And which of these vulnerabilities actually matter? Some of them may be patches. Some of them may be just configuration. And I love that because then we don't have to roll anything other than a configuration change. And, sometimes it's a vulnerability we can't do anything to mitigate, other than just accept the risk, but so lowering those vulnerabilities down to a level where you can say, okay, this is a level of risk I can accept for these applications. That's really our goal.
Right.
And by doing that, we're creating that root structure so that that company is more resilient to attack, so that there are more protected systems, more things that we've addressed as far as not only the vulnerabilities, but as far as how to restore paths, backups, architecture. We're addressing all of this for this organization, for each of these crown jewels, so that individually they're an entity that we can take care of and manage.
Yeah, it's interesting, back to the oak tree, right? So
Mhm.
I go in and I have the oak tree trimmed out about getting rid of the old stuff, getting rid of the old dead stuff. It's kind of like when you think about a network, you got duct tape and, band-aids and, and rubber
Yep.
bands pulling some things together. So I imagine you're going in there and trimming some of that stuff out,
Hmm.
right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's
Yeah.
shift the conversation a little bit. We're at about 15 minutes and you won't believe how 15 minutes goes by so quickly,
Mhm.
right? And
Yep.
so I really want to kind of shift this a little bit around the term, this concept of assessments, right?
Hmm.
And so I got some notes here, and kind of cue cards that help me with this. And so in the terms of this assessment theme, there's a big giant assessment theme that's going around, with governments and the
Hmm.
militaries. And for example, the Department of Navy just this past week released its first cybersecurity strategy after years of issues. And they're saying this is that the Navy will provide realistic risk assessments by conducting regular automated and manual testing of security protections from an adversary's perspective. That's very interesting, right? And then this one here with regards to DORA, right, which is the Digital Operations Resilience Act that just came in force, or actually it's coming in force in January 2025. So this is an EU directive, and financial entities and third-party information communication technology service providers have until January to comply with DORA before enforcement starts, and both entities must conduct continuous risk assessments of their environments. Now, there's another one too, the NIS2 EU directive. In the directive, the word risk assessment, self-assessment, security risk assessment, supply chain security assessments appears 14 times, and that comes in force in October of 24. The SEC remembered back in July when this new, right, public reporting of breaches and whatnot. And the new rules also add regulation, which will require registrants to describe their processes, if any, for assessing, identifying, managing material risks,
Hmm.
right? And then governor announces update to New York's nation-leading cybersecurity regulation, which is part of a sweeping effort to protect businesses and consumers require for more regular risk and vulnerability assessments. And New York State prepares for regulate hospital cybersecurity programs, again, conducting risk assessments. So the question is, to you, Art, in this theme of assessments, now you folks build a relationship. We build a relationship with here, Horizon 3 with our flagship technology, NodeZero. And
Hmm.
so how has NodeZero reduced the vulnerabilities by 50% across Airiam's entire client base? So really would love to learn more about that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's by giving us a prioritized list of really what is our valuable vulnerabilities, we've been able to tackle those in kind of a bite-sized approach to those companies. So, where they might have a couple thousand vulnerabilities when you do a regular vulnerability scan, we're able to tackle the ones that matter now, with thanks to NodeZero really giving us that prioritized list of vulnerabilities and the fix actions. They make it easy for us to you know handle those vulnerabilities. So even if it's something that we're not a vulnerability that we're not exactly used to having to mitigate, the fix actions kind of tell us how to do it. So we are able to leverage that really well in order to reduce vulnerabilities. And the reason it really isn't past 50% is there's a certain amount that we can't get rid of.
Right.
Like there's just a amount of legacy risk that a lot of companies have invested in, a lot of stuff that we just can't throw away. So we'll put in other mitigations wherever we can, but yeah, we've able to have insight now. We are able to have insight now with NodeZero, where we're able to run this regularly on our clients and be able to see really what matters in the environment and address those on a regular basis. And we meet with the client and say, hey, we recognize that these, three things are happening on your network. These are vulnerabilities, and we rank these as high, and these mattered, and NodeZero shows why they matter, because hey, it was able to exploit your domain controller because of it, things like that. It's able to access this S3 bucket because of this. It's able to show proof in the pudding why this matters. So we're able to show that to our clients and really get those projects moving. Where a lot of those vulnerability management projects are just extra money to a customer, but they don't see a reason why. They don't, the clients really don't see a reason why they need to invest the money in that remediation project. Like, they have these old servers, cool, if they're going to run forever, we'll just run them until the wheels fall off. But until we run NodeZero, and then it shows you that, hey, the attacker is actually going to use those servers now to get the rest of your environment. Now they matter, they matter to the business then. And so NodeZero is really able to demonstrate that risk for us, so that we're able to make movement on getting those projects approved with our clients, so that we're able to patch everything up, reconfigure things, push out new hardening policies, get CIS level 1 type hardening across machines. We're able to do things like that now because NodeZero is actually showing why it matters. And before, it was just us with a sheet of paper saying we have 30,000 vulnerabilities, but really, like, the company was like, okay, nobody's attacking us, it doesn't matter, so NodeZero really shows that effect to the company.
So you would probably say that NodeZero has strengthened your customer trust, right?
Hmm.
For the
Absolutely.
so yeah, yeah. So any more
Yeah.
comments about that?
Yeah, so with us, it's not us pen testing it and then kind of showing the customer what we're doing. It's us showing that it's really NodeZero. We don't hide that it's NodeZero behind the scenes. We're showing them straight up, Horizon 3 reports, and we let them know. So they're really seeing this as a third party audit of what we're doing as well. So that helps gain trust with the clients. It's we're not doing anything to change the effect of this pen test to kind of scope our story. We're actually using those test results to help improve our customers' position, and that's something that they're seeing, and that's what's building trust. Is we're actually showing you actual assessment results and helping you try to get down a roadmap, to improve your position.
Well, there's such a push out there today for this continuous assessment, right? I just read all these regulations, all
Yep.
these different movements in the industry, and you can see it. This theme is resonating everywhere. It's that
Yep.
organizations got to begin to start assessing themselves, right?
Yep.
And the Zero is a fantastic autonomous
Hmm.
assessment tool. You kind of let it run, set it, forget it, let it run. And number one, what it really does is it simulates that attacker foothold.
Yep.
Okay, I'm already in your network. Now I'm going to move laterally. I'm going to pivot over here, and eventually I'm going to find various ways of getting to domain admin,
Yep.
right? And that's probably something that organizations see and say, wow, that's a big problem. We've got
Yes.
to fix that issue right away. And you had mentioned that the guidance that NodeZero is providing you
Hmm.
is kind of streamlining that effort, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. And there is a significant push towards those assessments right now. We have a lot of clients which are like military subcontractors, defense subcontractors that are making any kind of widget for the defense industry, are having to, meet, NIST 800-171, CMMC compliance. But then last year, or actually this year, became effective in June, the FTC safeguards. So they FTC is basically requiring companies to self-assess, that are non banking industry. So it's like the anybody who does loans, whether it's paycheck loans, payday loans, that kind of thing. If it's car dealerships, when you're getting auto loans and things through that, any kind of credit refinancing, things like that, all have to fall under this FTC safeguards now, and they're required to get self-assessed, and they're supposed to be doing kind of a continuous monitoring and pen testing situation. So we're using NodeZero to address those, especially car dealerships. That's kind of been a niche that we've worked on, and it's helped us address that problem significantly.
Well, I mean, the assessment theme is again, it's something that, people are realizing. And the other thing that you had mentioned, we a couple of weeks ago we sat down and we chit-chatted for a good hour and working on a, joint case study, and you had mentioned that the pen testers, there's just not enough of folks available with the criteria, with the certifications and everything else. So explain some of the things that you were experiencing back in those days.
Yeah, yeah. So we were having problems holding on to pen testers. There were, pen testers are generally highly skilled, if they're experienced and they have some certifications behind them. So they also fetch a high dollar, and they're always in demand. And you see them jump between companies, because they're constantly being hunted and stolen. So we've had a couple, pen testers or hackers on our team that have been really great guys, but they're always stolen fairly quickly. It's really hard to retain them, and then I see them jump between other companies as well. So it's hard to develop kind of a pen testing practice unless that's really just your bread and butter. That's all you're doing is I'm going to invest a ton of money in the greatest pen testers in the world and build that practice. Well, we don't have that capability right now. We don't really want to spend in order to build a huge team. We have we don't want to be that. We are we're an MSSP, we're an MSP, we're a resilience company, but we don't want our bread and butter just to be, a bunch of pen testers. So, you guys have a bunch of pen testers, so we're going to use your technology because it has them built into us. So, that's really our approach now is, stop throwing dollars after people that are just going to leave us anyway really quickly. And we're able to use, the rest of our engineers are able to use NodeZero really well, and we just run them all through the technical the operator training for NodeZero, and they're able to get up and running and start running tests, and that's made us a lot more effective. Now, if there's somebody that needs some custom, a web app that's out there on, that needs some web app pen testing, then I'll bring in a partner that does pen testing for that, because that's a little bit of a niche there. But for infrastructure penetration testing, there's no reason for me to pay a person for that anymore. It's, NodeZero does it better than they ever could.
So, so I know we're just about up at the bottom of the hour, so we got just a couple of minutes left. So one last question. How has Node Zero strengthened our partnership, right? The partnership between Horizon 3 and Airiam, right? I think we're fantastic partners to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's become a foundational part of really all of our services now. So on the IR side, we're using it, after remediation to verify the environments to make sure that, okay, we've cleaned up this environment, we have them up and running, we harden them to the best that we know, and let's run, a simulation with NodeZero and see how it does. We're using it with our IR retainer products. So from the IR retainer side, it includes not only the remediation if there is an IR, but we're doing the pre-breach assessment to see where they stand. So we can use retainer hours towards improving resiliency of a company before there's an incident. They're paying for a retainer. We'll gladly use those hours to help improve them so that we don't have to fight an incident later. So we're using NodeZero there. That's really what it's based on. Our whole vulnerability management product that's built into that IR retainer is a regular test with NodeZero and then us addressing those vulnerabilities. And, we're giving a report and a quote to the customer and saying, okay, we're going to use this many of your retainer hours. If we address these vulnerabilities, is this okay? And, of course, they're going to say yes. And we're going to remediate those vulnerabilities. And then it just reduces their risk of us actually having to fight an IR later and having to deal with an actual incident. And then on the MDR side of the company, on the MSSP side, we're running it regularly on our customers to have AirGuard. So it is a foundational part of that. We're using it to make sure that our clients are more secure. So it's just, all of our client services are really based upon it now. And then on the sales side, we're always willing to do a kind of a free test with NodeZero, and it helps us bring people in. So, we'll run a test in an environment and show people where they stand. And it's not us doing any kind of magic. It's just us running NodeZero and giving them the report and saying, here you are. And if you want to fix it, here's a quote.
Yeah, right.
And, so it's become a real, integral part of everything we do now.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So I know we're out of time, but any final thoughts, and also how best way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, final thoughts are, resilience is to me a mixture of cybersecurity and IT. It's the right architecture on the IT side and taking care of technical debt, as well as securing and prevention and detection and being able to respond on that security side. And I just want people to start thinking about their the assume breach point of view. Assume somebody's in your network. Assume somebody is in that black box, just like NodeZero is running as, and has no access to anything, but is sitting there. Somebody has achieved access somehow. And there's a chance that some of you that are listening, that is the current situation. Somebody's in your network right now, just watching and waiting and trying to look for a way. Given that perspective, somebody's in my network. What am I going to do? What's the first thing you do? Do you go and unplug stuff if you know someone's in your network? Do you go, to me, it's I'm running backups. I'm running backups now. Like I'm making sure I have a way to get back. Um, is it okay? Now I'm going to go through this forensic investigation and find out where they are. What is your first thing that you're going to do, assuming breach? And given that kind of perspective, think about NodeZero as kind of a way to find out what that would look like as the attacker. And so that's how you're going to improve your resiliency, by addressing that with that constant mindset of that paranoid mindset of like, somebody's in my network right now. What are we going to do to improve this outcome for us? And for me, if you want to reach out to me, best way is LinkedIn. Just Art Ocain on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter as Art is Growth. And yeah, appreciate it.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, because I know I follow your great stuff you're putting out there today. And it's really about well, doing what? Seeing your network through the eyes of an attacker, knowing what they're going to go after and what they're going to go after next. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining today's session. And thank you, Art. It was a fantastic conversation. Got to have you back on again sometime in the future. If you're game, I'm game. And I would love to see that happen. I think that's about it. We can probably call this a wrap.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye now.
Thanks.